Go help your local women's shelter. If you just do your research, that's all. Okay.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
it's important to be really intentional about where we spend our time and our money and where we give our resources. And there are lots of smaller organizations, women's shelters and things like that that are underfunded that could use your dollars and your support. When you throw your money at a nationwide organization, it's really important to do the research to find out, like, all 501(c)(3)s have to report,
yeah.
and
Supposed.
it's really important to go and do your research about how efficiently they're using their money, because there are a lot of nonprofits where a majority of their money goes to funding the operation of the nonprofit and not to the people that they are
That's
claiming to give
mhm,
money to.
yeah.
So those reports are available publicly online. There are a lot of watchdog agencies that publish all of these reports. Also, you
Mhm.
can go to the IRS website to find
Yeah.
out if they're being transparent in their reporting and things like that. So, please, if you're donating money to an organization, please do your research and find out if they are actually giving money. Here's one little funny aside related. um, when Julie Rowe started posting all of her
She
crazy videos right before she was supposed to appear in the Chad Daybell trial, I did some digging into her
Oh,
nonprofit
yeah.
organization, and her financials are
It's
super shady. You guys, she took in something like $200,000 one year, and it all went to really shady looking operating costs, and she did not give very much money to, and I'm talking about less than $20,000 of that 200,000 that actually went to people in need or got donated in any way. It was all written off as expenses of funding the parties that she was throwing, and
can I can
it's
I
not
just
good.
say that, it's alleged that Julie Rowe and Chad Daybell, just like Tim Ballard, I mean, except Tim Ballard, he got blessings, his priesthood blessings from Tom Harrison. Okay, you can
Yeah,
find those all day in the lawsuits filed against Tim Ballard right now,
yeah,
where basically anointing him and telling him that he's going to be the future president of the United States, telling him that he's
yep.
going to be a future prophet of the LDS Church. And I'm like, okay, in this story here, okay, that a lot of people aren't quite connecting. Okay, I know they do. I mean, am I ever going to be able to prove anything about Tim in our case, in our family's case? No, probably not. But is this another sense of justice for the victims? Hell yes, all day,
Yeah,
every day, and all the other victims that are named and or unnamed. Okay,
yeah.
that I mean, they're third world vulnerable countries. So we don't know. That's just the thing. But it's interesting that if Julie Rowe and Chad Daybell were traveling to Salt Lake City, by the way, allegedly, okay, to meet with T Tom Harrison, I don't think it was for counseling. I can pretty much, with, confidence say that, it probably was not counseling, that it was to teach him how to portal, and by portal, that is remote view, which is the same thing that Janet Russin allegedly does in these ops, okay, of Tim Ballard's, okay? So you have that going on, and then you have the aspect of, if like you said, Nuance Ho or Cara Burrell, and Timmy Says What podcast, right? With
Mhm.
Ryan Fisher, okay? So Ryan has shared about how what Tom, because I mean, he knew Tim, uh, I guess I don't want to say intimately because not like that, but personally,
Yeah,
and
like, they
was
spend a lot
even
of
doing
private
some
time with
kind of
him.
business. I mean, Ryan Fisher is literally on some firm foundation. He's in the roster, okay? And I'm just like, because I check everybody out. I'm very observant, okay? I'm slow, but I'm observant, and I'm checking everything, okay? But the way that Ryan Fisher explained how Tom Harrison allegedly, everything is alleged, okay? Or my opinion. Okay, not even hers, it's just mine. But so, I mean, there's something about, and I'm really not good at retelling things, but something to do with, okay, Tom Harrison's vision, I guess, for OUR was to be able to rescue children after the apocalypse, basically. Okay. And I'm like, what? That's about as nonsensical as Julie Rowe having a nonprofit organization, which she made hundreds of thousands, where, that just that you saw.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, to for soul trafficking. And I'm like, what the fuck is soul trafficking? Okay, well, can you tell me what soul trafficking? Prove it. Well, what do you have? Like
Yeah.
Ghostbusters? Like you're gonna put them in a little thing or what? What? And I'm just like, this doesn't make sense. So why are all these people tied to this book? Okay. Why are they tied to this book and that person, that
Yeah.
man, who is also tied to the Hamblin case? Okay. So, I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
like, got a whole lot of Sataning going on, Satanist-ish stuff and trafficking and R-wording and
Mhm.
just all kinds of really bad stuff, bad bad decisions. And,
Yeah.
I just to me, I'm just like, okay, it's just in my opinion, I know that to me, the way the church presents itself, it's always about the image. I get the same thing from people involved in this case, in and around it. It's all about image.
Yeah.
And Lori obviously presented the face, or I didn't spend a lot of time with her, but the time that I did, she definitely wasn't like crazy, except
Yeah.
my crazy boyfriend at the time. And back in 2012 or 13, they came in for our Valo Christmas, New Year's thing, and we had a bonfire, which is crazy, right? But, my crazy boyfriend at that time, he was like, "That bitch is crazy." And I was like, "What?" Like, "What are you talking about?" And now I'm like, takes one to know one.
Crazy, she's crazy.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I real quickly just want to apologize to my channel members because I was on here, just babbling for like 20 minutes
Oh,
before
you're
I hit
good.
the share to my own channel thing. So some of you, if you're interested in knowing my connection to Tim Ballard and OUR, you'll have to go to Kresha's channel and rewatch. And I will talk about it on my channel. And
Yeah.
thank you for reminding me that I need to do that because I
It's
haven't done
really
enough
big,
of it.
right?
So.
So do you think that Tylee and JJ were trafficked?
I don't think so. And the only
Okay.
reason that I say that is because I think Lori was so focused on her little mission that I think that Tylee
What
and
about
JJ were just an obstacle to her and Chad being together, and I don't think
really?
that there was any other nefarious thing going on. Now, that being said, there are some people who have hinted that in the Idaho area, with all of the different cults that are around there, the little small fringe groups of people that are anywhere from 5 to 50
A
people,
quorum.
right? People have insinuated that there are fingerprints, quote unquote, fingerprints of SRA involved in their unalivings.
Oh, yeah.
I have not dug into that.
Oh, girl, I have. That's all
Um,
I do. That's all I
there's a lot,
do.
yeah, there's a lot of, conspiracy and things like that that I wanna
Woo.
know more, and I wanna learn more about that from you, so you and I should
Oh,
talk
girl.
offline about that before we talk too much in public about it, but I do want to understand all of the circumstances and all the
Crazy.
people involved, and that's why I keep engaging with this because I wanna know the
Mm,
truth. I wanna know the
yeah.
truth of what happened, and I think it's not out there yet.
Yeah, it's definitely not, and that's because and we will talk and I mean, clear your schedule for the next damn 2 weeks, okay, then.
Yeah,
Because no, I'm kidding, but yeah, I see it in the Sean Diddy Combs case.
yeah,
I mean, that's the whole purpose of that was for me to understand more about that so I could, get better insight into what it's supposed to look like versus what Utah is presenting me with Tim
mhm,
Ballard and
yep.
friends. okay? Because
Yeah.
there is the whiteboard meeting that was, Lynn Packer has been reporting on that for years
Yeah.
about the 2019 whiteboard meeting. I call it the whiteboard prophecy because it's fitting. It's
Yeah.
fitting because of the white horse prophecy, okay, in Mormonism. They're like,
Yeah.
"No, no, no, that's a conspiracy. That doesn't exist anymore. We disavowed it too." They disavow a lot of things when it's convenient, in my opinion. Sorry, not
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Um, it's just really sad, because it discredits a lot of things that are really going on.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't know. But it's, fascinating as well, but I'll tell you right now, Megan, I don't have to do near the mental gymnastics it takes to rationalize it legally and da da da, when I just trust my gut, everything's just like, "Oh, oh, okay, well, that makes sense." And I'm just like,
Yeah.
"Done." It's just like,
Yeah.
"Okay." And the rest has been just tracking it down and researching into it, connecting the dots for me.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that I've learned about the world we live in, just like with SRA victims in Utah, or, where the big hot spots for that back in the 80s, 90s, and they labeled it. That's a very common thing that I
Mhm.
see. Co- I'm from Southwest Louisiana right now. I'm in the heel of the boot. Okay. And I mean, I got thrown into this world, and I'm like, "What do they mean orthodox? I don't even know what the hell that means," And I'm just like, "What is that?" It took me years to really kinda even get that down, I'm just like, "What?" I
Yeah,
just
I'm
wasn't
really proud of
understanding
you
all
for,
this.
like, digging into this whole world that you never
I didn't do it.
you never really knew anything about it and didn't have a reason to, but you got thrown into it, and instead of just throwing up your hands and saying, "WTF, I don't get it," like, you really have done a lot of work to try and understand it and try to make sense of it for other people too, and I think what you're doing is really important.
Well, thank you. You just are so eloquent with speaking it. So I'm just like, here, I'll just draw the picture for you, and then you just speak it.
Yeah.
I'm just so glad that you have w- ran out of the church too. I was gonna say walked, but you ran, and I'm proud of you for that because I mean that was so much going on for you all at the same time. And again, I will always apologize and acknowledge the way that you had to find out. That's not right for anybody, and I'm so sorry that that happened for you.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
it
I'm just
was
very
I'm gonna unpack that at some point on my channel, I'll talk about it, but I feel like, being distanced from Lori and the rest of that side of the family for such a long time, like, getting thrown back into it was really hard, but I can't imagine what it was like for you, you
mm,
know, I mean, the kids were so much closer to you than they were for me. Um,
look, the one thing though, Megan, is I don't I reached out to one place. Sorry, I'm this is important though. It goes in with this. I reached out to a place here locally, and it takes with everything that was going on at that time in 2020. I reached out to a place called Compassionate Friends. We had attended a thing for his ex-sister-in-law and the baby she lost a long time ago, and I
mm,
was just like, "Oh my god, I just need a I need somewhere to I don't know who to talk to," because it was COVID, okay, locked down,
mhm,
which I was born for that, okay? I'm like, "This has been me all along," But,
mm,
so I reached out, and you don't know how hard that was. I did it, and I made time for it. I reached out, don't even know what I said. I don't even know what I emailed to these people. And they said that because I was not a grandma, grandpa, father, mother, brother, or sister, they couldn't help me. But not only
yeah,
could they not help me, they did not point me in a direction either.
yeah,
And I didn't realize that till months, maybe a year down the road. And I was like, oh my God. It was like rejection all over again.
yeah,
'Cause I was like, is my pain not relevant enough for people? I'm this affects me. It has rocked my world too.
yeah.
And I'm So that got me to thinking about how everybody's losses are relevant. I don't care if it's a freaking rock, a pet
Yeah.
rock. If it's your favorite pet rock and it's all like, you know what I mean? Like, nobody gets to tell you how to grieve. Nobody gets to dictate how to feel. Okay. They're not hit, you know what I mean? Anyways,
No, yeah, nobody gets to tell you that your feelings are invalid because you
it's
weren't close enough
worthy,
to the
right?
person, right?
Worthy.
Yeah, and I got some of that blowback too, and I still get it sometimes like, "Hey, you
um,
didn't even know the kids, you
but
know, whatever."
it
It's like,
doesn't
"No,
matter.
sorry."
It doesn't matter, okay? And I mean, there are people in this chat right here, right now, today, right here with us right now. It has affected them, okay?
Yeah.
And I mean, so you can't tell me that's not, what do they call it? I messed it up. You know, what's the word I'm looking for?
The proximity
Tangible. Sorry.
the proximity to the victim for
Yeah.
the person grieving is not relevant. And
Mm,
I say this a lot, and maybe I don't say it enough, but whenever anybody, and I forgive me for the way that I say this,
it's okay.
because I know
That's
people take
okay.
some I know people some people take issue with it. Whenever somebody, whether I know them or not,
Mhm,
loses their battle with depression to unaliving themselves,
mhm.
it affects me.
Yeah.
It affects me hard. It doesn't matter if I knew the person or not, because I
Mhm.
struggled with that for so many years. Whenever somebody succumbs to it, it still affects me because
It's a
I
loss.
remember what that felt like, and it guts me that somebody didn't have the resources that they needed to get through it. And so
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you know the person or not. We, as a human family, should be affected by the suffering of other people in the human family. And whenever we see a child harmed, we should all be horrified. So
Exactly.
don't tell me that my feelings are not valid because I didn't
Yeah.
spend every single day with somebody.
Mhm.
Um, we
Irrelevant.
all we all should grieve when we see suffering, and I think there's not enough of it, and I think we distance ourselves from it because it's hard to feel. So
And you're
God bless all
vulnerable.
of you who feel. God bless all of you who mourn with us when you didn't even know the kids, you know?
Yeah. Oh, thank
And
you.
and and F
Thank
Lori
you.
Ballo, who says, "I mourn with all of you who mourn," because she's not actually mourning.
But I mourn her too.
I do
I
too. I do too.
the it's just there's so much, there's no winner here, like, when they
Yeah.
were convicted, I wasn't like, "Okay, done." No, that's not how this works, that's not how grief, loss, advocating, seeking justice through understanding, just trying to get more answers than what, like you said. I agree totally with you on web sleuths when you said about the prosecutor's job is only to nail a conviction. That's it. It's
Yeah.
not to tell the story.
Yeah.
I mean, this is their career. They went to school for this. They're here to get justice, right?
Right.
So, my expectations, I had to change the way I was perceiving things. I was like, well, okay, my expectations are a little too high. I need to knock
And I
those
was
down
I
about
was
a
angry
notch.
at first too. I was angry and I was like, "Why are you not
Mm.
telling the whole story?" And then I realized that, well, okay, if they tell the whole story, it creates room for reasonable doubt about Chad's involvement, so I'm kinda glad that they didn't, you know?
Go get all the other handcuffs too, because there's
Right.
gonna be a lot
Right.
more people.
Right. And that's the other thing that is sad to me, is
Yeah,
that when they get such a huge conviction for the people who were the most materially involved, they're not gonna go after those other people, and I've had
no,
to let go of that. I had to let go of that a
that's
long time
been
ago.
hard.
There were so many people who were involved who could have and should have done something and said something. There were other people who are complicit. There are other people who have blood on their hands who will never
And
be held
still
accountable,
get
because
free.
once the state gets one conviction, their caseload is so crazy, busy, overloaded that they can't possibly go after every co-conspirator. But I was really glad to hear the language of other co-conspirators named and unnamed, because they know who
Well,
they are.
kinda. Right? But then I'm like, but then why they do that? Why they dangle the carrot, but then it's not about them. like you said, like you're saying right
but
now, I
again,
think.
it's like priorities, and I'll give you an example from my business life. There was somebody who perpetrated a fraud on the company that I was working for that was, over $3 million. It
I
was
remember hearing
ridiculous.
about that.
And my partner Samuel and I were working together. We went into the FBI. We made a report, and we basically exposed a whole cabal of people who are
I'm
conspiring
proud of
to
you. That's
extort money
hard.
from all kinds of people in this
There
industry,
is
right?
no
Probably
victimless crime.
right,
There's
like
not.
way more millions than what my company got victimized by. And the the FBI agents were very interested in pursuing justice in this case. They believed that they could get a conviction, but what they told us is that they had to present all of the evidence to the US Attorney's office, and the US Attorney had to be the one to
Mhm.
sign off.
Chad,
And what he told me, this FBI agent told me, is that the US Attorney prioritizes the cases that are most likely to get a conviction and are the
mhm.
most likely to recover the largest amount of money.
Yeah,
And if it doesn't fall into those two categories, your case gets deprioritized. And sure enough, we
right.
found out a couple weeks later, they presented the case to the US Attorney. US Attorney decided not to pursue charges against a person who defrauded a company out of more than $3 million. If
That's
that's not
hot
enough of a
potatoes.
priority, I'm just telling you, your case doesn't
Human life.
matter
Human life,
unless
which
they
is
think they
no
get a
value on
conviction.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yes, they thought they could convict Lori. Yes, they thought they could convict Chad. Everybody else, probably not. Probably not ever going to be prosecuted or held accountable.
Chad,
Because
that's
why?
Chad in Arizona, how they recommended the charges, for Chad, but like you said, DA turned him down because of less and not a likelihood that he would be
Of
convicted, and I'm
conviction.
like,
Which is
bullshit."
why the work that you're doing on your channel is so important,
You too.
because it's exposing these people in places where they would not get exposed otherwise. So keep
I just
doing what you're
I
doing.
mean,
Don't get discouraged. Your work
I know.
matters. It matters to this community, and it matters to people who are going to see it 10 years from now and don't, people will dig
Yeah.
back into this case and go, dang, I wish that XYZ person had been
Right.
held accountable. It's like somebody someday, Melanie Gibbs going to write another book, or she's going to start another podcast,
I
and
wish she would. I
somebody's
wish
going to
she
search
would.
her name, and these videos will come up, and they'll go, oh, well, maybe she's not such a great person.
I mean, the fact that I remember, seeing a picture of her with a little girl, and I'm just thinking, "Oh my god,"
Mhm.
like, is there like a public, announcement we could do, that says, "Hey, these people are free," and I mean, they were just so flippant if they weren't, in my opinion, if they weren't involved themselves. Okay, I have my theories, but, I just don't I mean, do you ask yourself, do you feel comfortable if Melanie Gibb would come and watch your child?
No,
I really don't either.
100% no.
Don't put a picture of Christ on your refrigerator okay? Unless you want that
Yeah.
thing knocked down. Just kidding. I mean, I don't understand that, and I don't know how that woman, that witch, in my opinion, that witch with a WITCH, okay? Amongst other things. But I don't know how she can even live with herself,
Well,
and she's
probably
nasty.
I think she probably comforts herself with the idea that she did eventually go to law enforcement and tell part of what she knew.
She's forced into it.
But I don't count her among the truth tellers, because I
Mm,
believe, personally, my personal opinion, allegedly,
you're
I
entitled.
believe I believe that she has not told the whole truth. And
Mm-mm.
to me, that is detrimental to everybody who could benefit if she actually did tell the truth. But there's too much shame about her role, and she won't do it. And that's
It's
fine. There are some
also
people who are brave and some people who are not.
I learned that there is, lying for the Lord, Joseph Smith. I learned that from the Ex-Mormon Foundation channel. Okay, there's, like,
Mhm.
this playlist of 10 videos, and it's, Clark, I forget his name, something Clark, and he is ex-Mormon, and he teaches about how there's this whole thing called lying for the Lord, and you do it by
Mhm.
omission, you do it with the
Yep.
fake communications, you do it with all the
Mhm.
things, okay? With the polygamy, with all the things that are very, in my opinion, relevant to this case.
Mhm.
I believe that the second anointing took place. That's me. I mean, and I had to find that all by myself. Now that I'm like patting myself on the back about because I mean, I was just like, why is Tom Phillips saying that he expected to see Jesus Christ in the flesh? Okay, and I'm just kind of like piecing the things that Lori said to my uncle. I'm a God, I'm a translated being, eternal life, like all the things. She's exalted, and I'm like, oh, so that polygamy thing, still
Yeah.
might be taking place, and so, whatever, I don't care what people believe. Believe what you want to believe. I care what Lori and Chad believe, and I care how that went down. Why? Because it very much affected the rest of the story.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that this kind of, I mean, if Lori and Chad did take part in something, the calling and election made sure, the fullness of the priesthood, the fullness of the gospel, there's all these things, okay, that are, I call them code words because I'm not Mormon, never been.
Yeah.
Um,
They are. They're code words. It's in
yeah,
speak.
it's a
It's
dog whistle. Yeah,
yeah.
outside it's to keep outsiders in the dark, literally, and it's to keep insiders also in the dark. And it is a secret society. Jason brought this up to me, and I was like, "Oh yeah." I mean, depending on how, because I didn't look at it like this, but to have to get into a temple, you have to have a temple recommend, which in
The
Lori's
Mormon
case,
card.
we heard for ourselves is worth red rumming somebody over, give me my temple recommend or I'm going to commit murder, or give me my temple recommend and I'm going to commit murder. Okay, what's that? That's a double speak.
Yeah. That was not yeah, that was a critical conjunction that she actually got wrong. Um,
Mm. Oh,
but
yeah,
yeah, like the whole lying for
it's
the Lord thing is it's
real.
like a justification. It's this ultra superiority complex
Hmm.
that people in the Mormon church, and I like to refer to it as the MFMC, if anybody can figure out that acronym. Um, they believe that they
Okay.
have the truth and that everybody
Mormon
else
fundamental.
just
Sorry.
doesn't know. It's the Mother, Father, Mormon Church.
Oh, damn.
Um,
I never guessed that.
um,
Oh my god.
but they believe they have the truth, that they believe everybody else doesn't know, and so
They're taught.
when they lie or manipulate or do things to try and get people into the church or whatever, they believe it's for the greater good.
Hmm.
And
And
if
that
you
they
have
have the truth and you do not, and so they're here to
exactly,
deliver that to you.
exactly.
And so if you're saying or questioning it, then, we're the Gentiles, straight up.
Yep. And so they believe that they're doing these things for the greater good because they're like, well, eventually everyone's going to find out that we were right and they were wrong. And then it'll
Right.
all be okay. It'll all
They
just be
will
washed
stand there
away.
with me
Like,
with Christ, and like
right.
Lori said multiple times now. Yeah,
Doesn't
that's
count.
eerie,
Doesn't count for me.
eerie. Yeah,
Yeah. And
but
it's like, there are things that people, okay. So when you're in this mindset where you believe that you know better than
mhm,
someone else does about what is good for their life, right? Let's just say, for example, that I
huh,
believe that
how healthy.
Kellogg's Corn Flakes is a superfood. Super weird history about that
Used to be.
cereal, by the way.
Not
Dig
so much
into
now.
it. It's a rabbit hole for another time, everyone. But let's say that I believe that it is the most nutritious food in the world. Okay.
Mhm,
Probably one of the things that I would do is maybe crush up some cornflakes and put it in almost every dish that I make so that my kids are eating cornflakes without realizing that they're eating cornflakes, right? That's the kind of crap that Mormons do because they believe that they have the truth, so they try to sprinkle it into everything that they do
mm.
without you knowing it. There's no informed consent. They're trying to make you consume it without you knowing you're
They don't
consuming
even
it.
know it though, I think. Did you know it?
Well,
Like, until
I
you
didn't
you know? We're coming out of it?
I didn't know how harmful it was, but I was not one of those people that tried to surreptitiously get people to believe things.
Right, but there are.
I was very open about it, but there are people who try to sneak it in, and
Especially
try to get you to
when
consume it without knowing it.
especially when you are running in with this circle of people who are like the yes men and yes, yes, yes. Oh yeah, you're fine. Yeah, you don't look crazy to me, because they're like-minded. They're on the same path as you. Vibrational, we'll just say vibration, low vibrational. Anyways, but like, I mean, so that's very toxic all in of itself, just for that insular networking, which I mean, I'm fascinated by it. I'm like, wow, Mormons really know how to kick ass with the networking. I
Well,
mean,
it's
whoa.
something that people refer to as the Mormon Mafia. Have you heard that expression?
Yes, I have, and that's why I'm like, I got y'all's number right here. I mean,
Yeah,
for
and
real, I've had to
there's a
do that.
little bit it's a little bit more insidious than that because when I was
Mhm.
in the church, I believed that there was this sort of idea that Mormons just always want to do business with other Mormons because they trust each other. They're like, "Oh, if you hold a temple recommend, I trust you. You're not going to screw me in business, blah blah blah." But that was the reason why I thought like I could never live in Utah because I know that there are unscrupulous people who claim to be good members of the church, but they
Yeah,
do business in a
and
way
then
that
they're
is
supported.
totally not,
Oh, I bet you I can
but
tell you something. Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
but it's more surreptitious than that. It's more than just Mormons like to do business with other Mormons. I'm finding that especially in these very small Idaho towns and Utah towns, that it is a conspiracy within the governments of these little towns. It's
Wow.
like the mayor, the
Huh.
sheriff, the people who do the land surveying, all of these things, these people are all connected to each other to help each other get what each other want and
Mhm.
to keep value and prosperity away from people who are not affiliated with the
That
church.
does sound conspiratorial.
It does, and I
Yeah,
know it
I need
sounds
to
a
see
little
your
outlandish,
conspiracy
but you
fairy
guys,
card.
I've said this a million times and I will continue to say it. For those of you who are awake and aware, when I did my episode about Chad Daybell's Little White Book, people
Mhm.
started coming out of the woodwork to contact me to tell me their stories of whatever little group they heard of or they were involved in or they were harmed by in their
Yeah,
little town, in their little corner of Mormonism. And
echoes.
it scares me so much because they were so similar and yet
They're
all
deadly.
unrelated. They were all
Deadly.
saying like, "No, we're not related to XYZ group. We weren't related to Chad, but there was this other faction that was, by the way, almost exactly the same as Chad and Lori's group, doing some of
Yeah.
the same things, preaching some of the same stuff, but not connected, but also connected." It's
Yeah.
a whole
So, I
network.
wonder if that gives any validity to Chad's whole believing in the shadow government thing, you know? Because you know how they project though too. So, kinda like what they're doing is kinda what they're projecting is what I'm saying. Kinda like the Raffiker is I mean, the anti-Raffikers are the Raffikers, that type of thing.
That drives me absolutely insane because that's the comment that I got more than anything else when I first started talking about child SA and trafficking on my channel was like, "Oh,
Well,
if
oh,
you
no.
if you
No, no,
hate Tim
no.
Ballard, then you are a
Oh,
trafficker."
yeah, yeah, yeah. I dare them to I dare anybody here to tell me that, and trust me, I'm like, there are children here. I don't know if Tim Ballard showed up that weekend. Where was he? I would like to know his whereabouts, his real
Yeah.
ones. I don't know. Um, there's all these gatherings, and that's what they call them too. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't do the bippity boppity boo, okay? But here, I do have this. Oh, will it play?
Membership has its privileges.
Anyways.
Yikes.
Gordon Bowen worked on that. Membership has its privileges.
So, yeah,
You
that's
ready for some were you ready for some court TV?
sure.
Ready?
I just
Alright.
you just like that just woke up an idea in my brain that I am gonna have to dig into later, so
Cool. Another
Yikes.
rabbit
Okay.
hole for you. We have all the rabbit holes you want here, okay? Yeah, come on. Come on, come all. You can have
Yeah.
them, and we'll take turns. There's endless supplies, okay? Endless.
Yeah. It's crazy.
All right, let me figure out my situation here. Okay. All right, bada boom, right. So, I found this very interesting because this is, Court TV from the other day. It was from November 12th, 2024, and it says, "Doomsday Cult Mom: Motives for Murder. Vinnie Politan investigates." Okay, so I will grab the link and I'll post it in the chat in just a second. But I found this interesting because of Adam Cox. I'm not here to victim shame, victim blame. I'm just here because and I'm not gonna tell you what I think about it or anything right now. We'll talk about it afterwards, but let me know what you think of this was about to take place. I don't even know how to set this up because I don't know.
Well,
Usually just
okay, so I
talk
can
through
set
it.
it up a little bit. Um,
Okay.
Vinnie Politan of Court TV has his own little segment of Court TV where it's called Vinnie Politan Investigates, and he's digging back into Lori's case. He invites
Uh,
Grunkle Rex, who I love, Mike King, who I love, um,
mhm,
John Dehlin of Mormon Stories, who I love, and Adam Cox, who I love. All of these people to come and talk about Lori's case and unpack some recent things. Um, So, for those
okay.
who maybe don't know, John Dehlin is the host of Mormon Stories podcast. He has the longest consecutive running podcast in history. He started podcasting back in 2003, just telling people's stories in and out of the Mormon Church. His um, his mission is not to bring people out of the church. His mission is informed consent. He wants to make the Mormon church healthier for the people who choose to stay, and he wants to give community to the people who choose to leave. He wants to
Yeah.
tell people's stories or let them tell their own stories about their own experiences about the church. He's also got a PhD in psychology. He does not
Mhm,
practice psychiatry, doesn't have patients, but he uses his education to inform the interviews that he does with people um, who have left the church. But he's also interviewed true believing members. He's also interviewed members of other cults. He
mhm,
has a very wide spectrum of guests. He has a very open mind, and he's very fair
mhm.
on his podcast. However, he is seen, as many people in the true believing Mormon
A
community,
label.
as a villain.
He's
And
labeled.
he was on the list of the Mormon church keeps a list of threats to the church, and he's constantly on that list of
Remember
threats to
the
the
bubble
church.
chart? Remember the bubble
Yep.
chart?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because people believe that John Dehlin is making people leave the church. They believe that he's actively trying to get people out of the church, which is not true. If you listen to what he says by his own words and by his actions and by the things that he posts on his channel, not true. However, true believing members see him as a threat, and so therefore sometimes um, when you get into a situation where it's John Dehlin talking about the church, people who are true believing members get offended by the things that he say. But I would love for people to just objectively listen to what John is saying
Mhm.
and see if you hear the same things in there that Adam heard. So I just want to clarify. Trace on the case is asking, Uncle Rex is my uncle too. He is
Mhm.
my dad's brother. He's one of my favorite uncles. He and I have had many great conversations. He and I disagree on many things, but we love each other regardless.
I
He
respect
came
that.
and visited me in my house a few months ago. We had a great
Yeah, I
conversation with
remember
him and
that.
my kids. And I love Rex. Again, we don't agree on
Mhm.
everything. And I think Adam and Rex both dislike the fact that I am critical
I
of the Mormon church
I'm
because I'm
glad.
out
So
and
glad.
they're still in. So that's one of the things that we disagree about, and it's okay to disagree.
Mhm. It is.
We respect each other's position. So
Mhm. And I'm just gonna say and thank you, because I never could have done that. Told you do it so eloquently. But my fascination with it or interest was to see how Adam reacted And it made me think about how it must have been whenever Uncle Charles and even Adam, Uncle Charles reached out to Adam for help
Mhm.
because everybody turned their backs on Charles, okay? And like you said, branded him with the scarlet letter, basically.
Mhm.
And I mean, and so they were trying to Charles and Adam, were talking about doing maybe an intervention type thing on Lori and confronting her beliefs that they thought were bizarre. Okay. So it's just interesting to me. I was just like, whoa. This is not to, I'm not sitting here, I don't want to come off as I'm judging Adam or anybody else for that matter.
Mhm.
But it's just, to me, they grew up in the same household and he's experienced the losses as we have. Okay. And just different sides of this, there's so many different perspectives. None of them are going to be the same. So that's also an interesting factor in all
Yeah.
this. We all have such different backgrounds and interesting perspectives, I do believe.
Mhm.
And so if we could ever work together and come together, we could be a freaking force to reckon with, is all I'm saying. 1-2
Yeah.
punch. But anyway, so I want to play. Yeah. I mean, go watch the whole episode if you can. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, it made me feel good because, like you said earlier today when we were on the phone, like Lauren and Dr. John, they're, hemmed up with, uh, covering another case right now. So it's like the OGs, or so, so to speak, aren't here to really report on Lori and everything going on in Arizona like it was in Idaho. So I'm glad that they bring this stuff up, and remind everybody of the case. I mean, because it's still going,
Yeah.
we still want to get justice for Charles and Brandon
Yep.
ultimately. And anyways, we do or we don't want Lori to represent herself. I don't know what I want. I just
Yeah.
want her to plead guilty, but hey, here we are.
It would be so great if she would just plead guilty and end everyone's misery, but it's gotta be the Lori show. So,
Like cognitive dissonance is a bitch. That's all I'm saying.
yeah.
Anyways, all right, let me find a good little. I could have done this the whole time, right? I guess
It's okay.
I'm just gonna go.
What changed in her life? Where did the obsession with zombies and cult leader Chad Daybell come from?
I want me to speed it
It's
up.
hard to believe that this actually happened, but it did. 2 children dead, 2 spouses dead, and just a trail of lies and betrayals. So here we are at her trial, and Lori Vallow is convicted and does not testify in her own defense, but then makes a statement at the end of the case during the sentencing. Take a listen.
Oh God, I hope it's.
I was told by
Suffering.
Jesus that I needed to go back and complete things that I had covenanted or promised to do before I was born. This caused me a lot of distress because I knew heaven was my real home and I only wanted to be there. I was free from pain, emotional and physical. But then I was shown how I would help my children and others in the future. So ultimately, I did agree to go back to my body.
You suck at it.
So much of this, the doomsday preppers preparing for the end times. She hooks up with Chad Daybell. He's making these prophecies and these predictions, which, by the way, didn't come true. He was predicting the end of the world, and I think it was the summer of 2020. Didn't happen. Pretty close, though, with COVID, right? But did not happen. And
I think that got put on Chad. I really do. I think that got put on Chad and Lori. That's just one of those things where I'm just like, it sounds a little propaganda, But I mean, I could be wrong,
it gets to the heart of it's always like, why is this happening? How could this happen? And that brings me to our next question about her. Was Lori driven by her religious beliefs?
Absolutely. Do you think so?
Is that what happened here?
Totally. Yep.
Okay, so it wasn't just money, power, and sex?
Well, I think the power part of it is what was driven by the religious beliefs. Like, that's what gave her the power, was the religious beliefs.
I agree. Whenever Rob Wood whenever she was indicted in 2021, and they brought up due to religious beliefs espoused or whatever, I was like, oh, bam, and that's where I kind of latched on because I find this very fascinating, just the whole cult kind of thing, I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
Again, I started this whole thing out when my Uncle Charles was alive still, and I looked at Larry and I was like, cult? Like a cult leader? Like Charles Manson? And I was like, he didn't kill anybody. And Larry looked at me like, read the room, and I was like, oh, I didn't know any better. I was ignorant. And myself, I am ignorant, and I can be ignorant, and it's not intentional, so I think that's okay too. Yeah, to not just, come at somebody just because they say something really ignorant sometimes, just help them read the room, basically.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm gonna have to get my
Was
notes.
it her belief set, which became distorted clearly? Was that what drove all of her conduct, all of her behavior? Joining us to help get to the bottom of it, host of the Mormon Stories podcast and psychology PhD, John Dehlin, and co-host of the podcast, Tylee and JJ's Silver Linings, and co-author of the book, Lori's Lies and Family Ties, Lori Valade Bell's brother, Adam Cox. Thank you both for being here. Adam, I'll begin with you. You knew her growing up, and how this all transformed. Do you think she was driven by her religious beliefs?
Well, obviously, for 45 years of her life, she was completely different than she is now. And her beliefs then were just the teachings of the LDS Church. But when she met Shad and started listening to Julie Rowe podcast and all these extra things that started jumping on board, she went further and further with that. And soon, little by little, by listening to all these podcasts and talking to these people, they got into her head, and she changed what she used to believe to this new whatever religion that Chad was preaching, and she jumped on board with it.
Let's take a listen. John, I want you to take a listen to this call. It's between Lori and her friend and one of her co-preppers, Melanie Gibb. I think it gives us a little more insight to hear Lori in her own words.
Darkness is knocking on the door all the time because that's the way dark works with the light. And I promise you that I have done nothing wrong in this case, but sometimes you have to hide in the cavity of a rock for your own life safety. And that's what the Lord requires of you sometimes. And that's how it is. And I'm sorry that's how it is, because there is a lot of darkness on the earth. And I did exactly what I felt the Lord was instructing me to do. And I appreciate you and I love you. And I would never do anything to harm you. And you can have all of this confirmed to you by the Lord.
I don't know what else to say.
Stand Christ when he comes again, and he's coming soon, and we will all stand there, and you will know at that point that he has supported me and has supported me the whole time, and I have not been deceived.
Okay, John Dehlin, I'm interested in your take on this. What are you hearing? What are your thoughts about what is driving Lori Daybell? Is it her true religious beliefs?
I guess I have to start with the disclaimer that most Mormons don't kill their spouses or children. And I also will agree with the previous guests that she's clearly in many ways mentally ill, and I would say with clear personality disorders. But the problem is the founder of the Mormon Church, of the Mormon religion, Joseph Smith, laid down so many doctrinal teachings that are still believed to this day and are core to Lori and Chad's theology. That Jesus is coming soon, that's from the New Testament. That God chooses special people, the Davidic servant, or the one mighty and strong, that's in the Old Testament in Isaiah. Mormon, book publishers have published that for years. That prayer is talking with God and Jesus, just like you heard her say in that phone conversation. Joseph Smith talked with God and Jesus, and Mormons are taught that they can too. Mormon is a visionary church, and so Mormons believe that they can have visions and that their visions come from God, that their feelings can be from the Holy Ghost. And so if you have feelings like you're supposed to kill someone or sleep with someone else's spouse, you even have Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, who believed that he should sleep with other men's wives. That's not made up. And that's the leader and the founder of the religion. We even have in Mormon theology that in the Book of Mormon, in one of the very first pages of the Book of Mormon, we have God telling one of Mormon's founding prophets, Nephi, that he needs to cut the head off of someone who he thinks is bad. And he gets those feelings from what he believes is the Holy Ghost. Mormons also believe that the dead spirits that are evil can possess your body, and that you can speak with dead people who are good spirits. And then finally, the church has believed for a long, long time that lying and even murder isn't necessarily wrong, nor is polygamy if God tells you to do it. So I understand why mainstream Mormons want to distance their church from Chad and Lori, and the average Mormon doesn't behave this way. But if you just take the secret ingredients of someone who's mentally ill, somebody who's in a midlife crisis, somebody who's financially desperate, and then you add to that these theological ingredients, these will not be the last Mormon murderers who base their murders or their adultery on Mormon theology and doctrine and history.
Let me ask you, Adam.
Sorry about that.
Before the transformation in her first 45 years.
Hold on. Let me just pause for a second so I can just talk a little bit right here. You want to talk me in? So
Sure.
I just don't want to do the copyright thing. Okay, Vinny? Just kidding. All right. Just kind of breaking it up a little bit.
It's fair use to use other people's copyrighted videos if you're going to make commentary. And that's what the crawl is down there on the bottom. So it shouldn't be a problem.
So fair use, okay? YouTube daddy. All right. Because, can't bite the hand that feeds you a little bit.
Right.
Stop censoring us. Damn it.
Her level of interest.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm over here behind the wheel.
No, you're fine. You're fine. There were just a couple of things that we need to come back, and this is just a reminder, come back and talk about the second anointing later, because it's not relevant to what we're talking to now, but somebody... there were a couple of comments about it that I want to clarify. But I just want to say that after listening to John Dehlin speak, I did not find anything in what he said to be untrue or to be inflammatory to believing members of the church. As a former Mormon, somebody who was raised in the church and who was in the church for the first 45 years of my life as a believing member, I can say that what John Dehlin said is accurate, that members of the Mormon Church do believe in the New Testament when people are possessed by evil spirits and Jesus cast out the evil spirits. Absolutely, we believe in that. In addition, there are significant scriptures in the Doctrine and Covenants, which is a book written by Joseph Smith, where he wrote down his quote unquote revelations from God. And God revealed to him, he said, how you can determine whether a spirit that visits you is good or evil. So the belief, if you read into that, the belief is, yes, dead people can come and visit you. And there's a way that you can tell if the dead person that visits you is a good spirit or an evil spirit. And you're going to laugh, you guys. But the way that you tell, just in case you want to know if a spirit ever comes to visit you, offer to shake their hand. Because if they shake your hand, then you know that they're an evil spirit, because spirits know that they don't have a body and they can't shake your hand. So if they're good, they're not going to offer to shake your hand because they know they don't have a body. If they're an evil spirit, they might think they have a body or try to convince you that they have a body. So they will offer to shake your hand. It is in the Doctrine and Covenants. You can look it up at LDS.org. If you go to LDS.org and you look up evil spirits or shake the hand of an evil spirit or shake the hand of a spirit or whatever, you can find it pretty easily. It's right there.
Just don't shake a hand of a broke man's hand. Anyways, I don't know. I just jacked that all up. But I'm going to tell you about, I'm a Nevermo, and my introduction to the Book of Mormon was via my family's red rooms. Okay. And so, but still, it didn't leave I went into this not wanting to become a member of the church, or it's nothing, no expectations. I just wanted to know where Chad and Lori's beliefs differed from that
mainstream,
of the cult. Okay. Right. And the cult beliefs that have been released. And anyways, and so that was my only interest in this, because I was trying to understand what makes a cult, leader or a member.
Yeah.
And so my understanding is like, just like with an alcoholic or a drug user, okay, or a narcissist, you don't say, hey, you're an alcoholic. You don't confront people. You don't do that.
Yeah.
It's confrontational. It goes nowhere. It's not constructive. To me, that's just for me. Now, everybody I do say some things sometimes because it's just it's very complex, and it's not just as cut dry, It's
Yeah.
easy to just label something as something, and that relieves you from having to just kind of dig a little deeper and to deal with things and maybe see things for what they are. So my interest in this is, yes, I've learned a lot of things through not only John Dehlin and everything that he's produced over the years, but also other Mormons in and out. I still watch Jason, my fiance. He's like, oh yeah, he talks about Moroni, and I'm just like, wow, what did I do to you? I'm so sorry. And then, but I mean, it's just part of life now, like we understand Mormonology.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't, it's a very unique position is all I'm saying. But I think he presented it very fair here too, from what, I mean, y'all just know how to say it. I'm like, So you ready?
Yep.
Like to hear it. Here it goes.
Let me ask you, Adam, before the transformation in her first 45 years, her level of interest and dedication to religion, and I want to put a number scale on it just to have some context here, like 0 to 10. How religious was she?
She's dark.
Well, as she was younger, probably not as much, but as she got older and older and older, it went from like a 5 to probably a 8 or something like that.
And in your family growing up, how significant a part of this was it for day-to-day life for you, your siblings, your parents?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the church goes, I mean, Lori had callings all the time. She was doing what she was supposed to be doing at church, keeping the commandments, doing everything that you should be doing. And that's what we were raised to be good people. And we were raised to keep the commandments and do all the things and follow Jesus. So, I obviously I disagree with whoever the guy is that's on, but he says some things that just aren't true about the Mormon Church. But
well, you can
everybody
respond.
Can have their own opinion.
You can respond.
Yeah, just
Adam.
Yeah, I mean, I've been going to church my whole life. I've never heard anybody in our church say that dead spirits can jump into other people's bodies. That's not right. I've never heard that before.
So if you read in the New Testament, you read an account of Jesus. By the way, Mormons believe in the New Testament and the Bible. You have an account of a man coming to Jesus who's possessed by evil spirits.
So do all Christians.
Yeah, but Mormons are Christians. So that's a teaching that Mormons have. Right. Mormons also believe if you go to the Mormon temple ceremony.
Why did you say Mormons? Why didn't you say just Christians?
Let me just clarify then. In the Mormon temple, Satan is there. And Peter, James, and John raise their hands to the square and cast Satan out of the garden. And if you just go to LDS.org or churchofjesuschrist.org, you can see demonic possession there on the church website as a doctrine of the church. And one of the features or the benefits of having the Mormon priesthood is the ability to cast out evil spirits. I was taught this growing up. I was a Mormon for 45 years, and I was taught even by my mission president on my mission, that you could cast out evil spirits with the priesthood by raising your arm to the square and casting them out, just like Jesus did with the evil spirits, casting them out into the pigs. That's absolutely core Mormon doctrine, and I think it's weird you never heard or learned about it, honestly.
No, I know about that, but from what you're saying is you're saying Mormons are different than other Christians. I've seen other Christian churches do the exact same thing.
I didn't say that.
I know, but you're pushing to Mormons when you should just say Christians. Don't say Mormons. Say Christians, because you said you keep bringing up the Bible. Christians believe in the Bible, so use the word Christian. Don't use the word Mormon.
I think Mormons teach it at a more literal level, and a more specific level than mainstream Christians. I think demonic possession. If you look at that book that was under Lori Vallow's knee while she was at the poolside when she first was arrested, it's a book called Visions of Glory. That was the most sold book in Utah the year of the murders and the year after the murders. That book is all about demonic possessions, and it's one of the most popular books ever in the history of Mormonism in the past few years. Can you explain why tens of thousands of Mormons are buying Visions of Glory and reading it and sharing it? It's not because this is some isolated, fringe group.
And I can only tell you this. I've never read it. I've never read that book. There's probably millions of Mormons who have not read that book. So, people can read whatever books they want to read and come up with whatever they want to come up with. It's not part of the church. The church isn't selling the book.
Can you explain to me why this book, Visions of Glory, was one of the top-selling books in Mormonism for 2 years running in the state of Utah? Can you explain that to me?
I'm just going to jump in here.
I don't know.
Adam, I'll give you the last. Okay. I'll give you the last word, Adam. And obviously this is part of the story, and I understand both positions that you have here. And Adam, I'll just give you the final word, and we appreciate both of you.
Well, from what my perspective is, you can be Christian and you could go to any church you want. But once you snap at a certain point, and you start taking your own beliefs and starting, to change verses and making things the way you want them to be, like which Lori and Chad did, it really has nothing to do with the teachings of our church and what we believe in. So I hate that, people like push all this stuff on the Mormon religion and LDS and all that. Lori and Chad went AWOL, way AWOL. So we just don't believe in the things that Lori and Chad preach about, the light and dark and all that stuff.
Gotcha. Big thanks to John Dehlin. Adam's going to stay with us. When we come back, we are going to take a look at, did Charles Vallow fear for his life?
You're muted, Kresha.
Good. Unpack.
Okay, so yes. So let me explain, and let me possibly offer some perspective. First of all, there was somebody in the chat who said, leave Adam alone. He's going through it. I have no intention of tearing Adam down. I love Adam. I appreciate what he's going through. It's very difficult. And I completely understand why you would not want to, and Adam has admittedly said to he said this publicly on his podcast and to me personally as well, like he has not dug into all of the things that Kresha and I have dug into. He hasn't read Visions of Glory. He hasn't listened to all of the interviews. He hasn't researched all of the things, because I think, my opinion, because I think it's very painful for him to do that. And I completely understand why he doesn't. I want to show a great deal of compassion for Adam in this. Yeah. This is by no means a tear down, a takedown of Adam.
Constructive. I mean, it's really to see about, my mind is just because of Lori and how firm she is in her beliefs still to this day. And I mean, being raised in the same household. Yeah. Things like that, they have a lot of things in common.
Yes, so and also it's possible to be raised in a household in the same family with the same parents and have very different perspectives. For example, I was a very different mom to my older kids than I am now to my younger kids. And so if you ask my older kids about their experiences growing up, they're going to have different stories than my younger kids do. And Adam and Lori are not that far apart, but they're far enough apart that it's very possible that Adam sees his parents and his family very, very differently than Lori does, and had a different experience because he's a boy in a Mormon household and not a girl in a Mormon household. And that's a very different experience too. So I want to have a lot of compassion for Adam and his experiences. And I also want people to understand, just try to put yourself in the position where your family members have unalived your family members. It is an incredibly difficult thing to embrace and to radically accept. Of course, all of us, like, these are the stages of grief, right? There's a reason why denial is one of the main stages of grief. It's because the very first thought that comes into our mind when something terrible happens is no, 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 not this, not this, not this. It's not true. It's not true. Tell me it's not true. Those of you who've been through something traumatic can relate that the first thought that comes into your mind is like, please tell me this is not true. And it takes a great deal of mental and emotional work to get beyond that space of, please tell me this is not true. So this is absolutely not meant as a teardown of any Cox family member, and especially not Adam. I think it is interesting to look at his reaction to John Dehlin's comments, because John Dehlin, I believe, as we said, was very fair in presenting the beliefs of the Mormon Church correctly and honestly. Mormons believe in the New Testament. It's also true that all other Christian religions believe in the New Testament, because that's where Christ makes his appearance in the Bible for the first time. Although it's not the first time he's mentioned in the Old Testament as well, that there's going to be a Messiah, right? So all of the major Christian religions believe in the New Testament. And the New Testament is very clear in presenting stories where evil spirits inhabit the bodies of people and Jesus casts out those evil spirits. Very clear that that's the case. What's interesting to me is that Adam's defensiveness comes from the idea that John Dehlin is singling out Mormonism as believing those things. Adam wants John Dehlin to say, just say that it's all Christian religions that believe it. Don't single out Mormons. Well, both of them are correct. John Dehlin is correct in saying that Mormons believe this, and Adam is correct in saying that all Christian religions believe this too. I think that Adam is reacting from a place that most Mormons can identify with, that the Mormon Church and members of the Mormon Church have somewhat of a persecution complex. Most true believing Mormons, when they hear criticism of the church, immediately think that they are being persecuted, because that's the history of the church. That's the narrative that we are taught from the very beginning, that the reason that Joseph Smith moved around so much, the reason why it started in New York and then it went to Illinois or Ohio, and then it went to Illinois, and then it went to Missouri. And I may be getting the exact timing of those moves wrong, but I was taught, I will just speak from my own experience. I was taught that the reason that Joseph Smith had to move the church around so much is because they were persecuted. What did persecution mean? Well, it meant that whenever the Mormons moved into a community and the people who originally lived there saw how prosperous the Mormons were, and saw that they liked to do business with each other, and saw that they were happy and thriving, we were taught that the original inhabitants of that area were jealous of the Mormons' prosperity and of their community and of their working together to become prosperous, and they felt left out. And so they started trumping up charges against Joseph Smith and against the Mormons, and ran them out of town and persecuted them, and in some instances perpetrated violence against them. And while those things are true, what is left out of the typical Mormon narrative is the reason for the persecution. We were always told it was jealousy. They didn't want us moving in. It was a huge amount of people like coming in, taking over a community and starting their own businesses and leaving the rest of the people out of it. In reality, what was happening was that around 1841, which was about 10-ish years after the church was founded, Joseph Smith started practicing polygamy. He started propositioning young women and other men's wives and saying that God told him that he was to reinstitute the practice of plural marriage. And so he went around secretly practicing polygamy and then bringing in his closest supporters to also practice polygamy with him. And it was hidden and it was covered up. But when the people of the original settlement, whether it was in Ohio or in Missouri, Kirtland, Ohio, Nauvoo, Illinois, or in Missouri, people found out that Joseph Smith was doing inappropriate things with young women and he was predatory. And there's a very famous incident where Joseph Smith and I believe Oliver Cowdery were taken out of their homes in the middle of the night and they were tarred and feathered. And what we were always told is that people didn't like the fact that Joseph Smith said that he saw God in Jesus Christ. They were offended by this idea that he had had this vision. And they thought it was so wrong and blasphemous that they wanted him to die. And so they pulled him and Oliver Cowdery out there. They covered them with tar and feathers, and that Joseph Smith almost died, and that one of Joseph Smith's children did die because of the exposure to the cold. They called it exposure, but because they were exposed to the weather in the middle of the night and got sick and died. The real story is that one of those men had found out that Joseph Smith was doing inappropriate things with his young daughter, and he got together a group of men who were going to go and either unalive or emasculate Joseph Smith. And I'm being careful with the words because of YouTube. There was a doctor present at this, and it was his job to medically emasculate Joseph Smith. And when it came down to it, the doctor didn't have the stomach for it and couldn't do it. But that was the idea, was that if we do this to this man, then he will no longer practice predatory behaviors on our young men and basically our children. So I didn't know that part of the story, of course, until after I had left the church and started reading source documents and journals. Yes, Anna Franco, like Lorena Bobbitt sort of situation. When I started doing my own research and I realized the reason for the tarring and feathering was not because of religious persecution, but because of prosecution of someone who was a predator, it completely changed my position on looking at the persecution complex of the Mormon Church. So the Mormon narrative is that we were driven from our homes over and over and over again because of what we believed. Because Joseph Smith said he was a prophet of God, because Joseph Smith said that he saw Jesus Christ, God in Jesus Christ, and that he was carted off to jail on trumped up charges over and over again, and eventually was killed because of these manufactured charges. Well, what actually happened is that one of Joseph Smith's closest supporters printed a newspaper called the Nauvoo Expositor. It only had one issue, and the purpose of that publication was to out Joseph Smith for his practice of polygamy and his predatory behaviors. And when the Nauvoo Expositor was printed and distributed, Joseph Smith, who was the mayor of the town at the time, ordered his followers to destroy the printing press on which that paper was published, which is a treasonous act. The printing press was destroyed. Joseph Smith was reported to the authorities, and he was arrested and sent to Carthage jail for that reason. Many people don't know that while he was in Carthage jail, he and Hiram and John Taylor, the other people who were there with him, were drinking wine and sort of consoling themselves in that way. And also that Joseph Smith had a pistol with him in the prison cell. And people around in the community sort of realized he's probably not going to get a fair trial. He's probably not going to be held accountable. And they decided to storm the jail. Joseph Smith opened the window and made a Masonic sign. He had joined the Masons several years prior, and he believed by making this Masonic sign and crying out for help that the other Masons, the other Freemasons, would save him. But instead, they shot him. During the course of this, the jail being stormed by the mob, Joseph Smith, in fact, put his pistol outside of the door and shot it 3 times, and I think killed at least two men and wounded another one. Then he ran to the window, made his Masonic sign where he was shot from the window and fell out of the window. So the story that I was told about Joseph Smith being martyred for his beliefs was not true. And what actually happened is that he committed an illegal act. He was sent to prison for it, and a mob decided to unalive him. Now, was that the right thing to do? No, it's vigilante justice, which I don't believe in. I don't believe is good or true or right or real. However, it's not the story that I was told as a true believing Mormon. So the persecution complex, though, would have you believe that Joseph Smith was killed for what he believed. And that plays very heavily into the psyche of people who loved and believed Joseph Smith. So, for example, my own ancestors, my 5th great-grandfather, who joined the church in 1831 or 32, just right after it was formed in Missouri. And then 6 years later, his family was driven from their farm. They lost a lot of money. And because of their wanderings trying to find a place to live, my 5th great-grandfather died by the side of the road. And they buried him. But before he died, he made his children promise that they would get married to people who were in the faith, that they would stay faithful until the very end. So that kind of a legacy has a huge impact on people. So his sons, who buried him by the side of the road because he died, because he was driven out of his home by people who hated him for what he believed, that instills a very powerful narrative in people. And he went on to help his mother and the rest of his family move to Utah. And the Utah territory at the time was not a part of the United States. They believed that they needed to leave the country in order to find religious freedom. And so they went to Utah basically so that they could practice polygamy without the United States government being upset with them. And along the way, moving from Missouri to Utah, many of those people walked until their feet were bloody. Many of those people died from cholera, from hunger, from exposure, from weather. And when you come from a legacy of people who literally walked across the plains to find religious freedom, that sort of persecution complex is instilled in you. And you believe that anytime someone is critical of your church or your belief, that is that same persecution that's happened over and over across the years. And now people are coming for you. They're attacking you because of what you believe. Instead of just having a regular conversation where we disagree with each other, when someone exposes Mormonism for what it is, it feels like an attack. And when someone compares Mormonism to a harmful belief structure, it feels like an attack. And when someone highlights a Mormon belief that's actually broad to all of Christianity, they're like, why are you persecuting us? Why are you coming against us? Why are you picking on the Mormons? Because all Christians believe in people being inhabited by dark spirits. All Christians believe that. If you believe the New Testament, you believe that, because there is that story or a couple of different stories about evil spirits being cast out by Jesus. So I just want to, help people understand that when someone gets defensive about Mormonism, that's where it comes from, is this ongoing persecution complex where Mormons believe that historically we have been othered, we've been shamed, we've been driven from our homes. Many of our ancestors died for what they believed in. And I will be damned if I'm going to be the one who doesn't stand up for the faith and the truth and what I believe in. On the other side of that, I'm one of the only people who is in my family who is descended a 7th generation Mormon who's not in the church. There are very few of us. Out of 21 cousins on my father's side, which is Lori's side of the family, I'm one of the only couple, 2 or 3, that are in my generation who have left the church. On my mom's side, where there are 24 cousins, all my aunts and uncles and cousins are in, except for me and one other cousin, I believe. So when that's your family legacy, that's your family history, that's your entire family, it's really, really difficult to go against that. So I just want people to understand Adam's position, where he's coming from, and to understand that while nothing that John Dehlin said, I believe, was untrue or inflammatory, I understand Adam's reaction, because it does feel like being persecuted when a regular Christian belief gets called out as only Mormon. So that's all. Sorry for the long ramble.
That's okay. I went and made some supper, and now I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
Everybody went out, had their coffee, took a shower, ate
Lady was like,
dinner.
"Who's Kresha?" I was
They're coming
like,
back and they're
"Well,
like,
I
is she
am."
still talking?
No. Girl, you're speaking truth. And just like Little Brand said, Megan and Kresha, I wish these recordings and collab. Oh my God. Collabs.
The collabs.
Yeah, collabs, those things would be more regular. You're both setting the record straight. And, I hope we do too. I hope we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see.
And that's
Now
my
go.
only motive in talking about this. It's not to shame Adam or call him out
No.
for getting angry. It's because
Or
I
anybody.
want people to understand the
Mhm.
perspectives and the information, and what is real and what's not real, and what's true, what's not true. Sometimes on these shows where they only have like a, 50-second or 1 minute and 20-second soundbite or window, there's not time to explain all of these things.
No, and I mean, it really it blew my mind to just kinda it was heated, and I was just like, "Oh, oh," but, Vinny, I believe he just let them, be humans and human, and I appreciate that too. I and again, it's not to put on public display, you know what I mean? Like, it's not to be like, "Oh, look," it's just it fascinates me because like Megan said, she says it so much better than I do, but just the whole thing, all that to deal with already from Adam's perspective. I'm an empath too, and it's got to be the most overwhelming thing for him. I mean, he also went, through divorce.
Right.
At the same, all in the same time, he lost his sister. He
Yeah.
lost his brother,
Right.
basically, he,
Right.
maybe even Melanie Boudreaux to an extent. He lost Brandon. I mean, I know
Yeah.
that, like, Brandon's still alive. I know Lori's still alive, but I mourn Lori. I have for a
Yeah.
long time, because the person that I saw walk into that courtroom, in March of 2020 was a zombie,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Was she was just a carcass, and I was just like, I don't know her. I don't know her.
Mm.
And so, I even told my daughter, who was really close to them, she would go and spend weeks at a time, and Lori even told my daughter that she was special, and I was like, "Okay, well, hold my earrings."
Mm.
That's a whole it's just like so many emotions because I love her, and I don't hate anybody. So I don't hate her. I don't hate Chad. They did what they
Yeah.
did. They have to pay whatever price they have to pay. They have to be held accountable.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm not a judge, I'm not a jury. Thank God. Okay? Like, I don't want that job. I just wanna understand it, and I wanna talk about it because it keeps the victims alive. It keeps their
Yeah.
spirit alive to me. Like, whenever we stop speaking their names is when they truly die. So,
Yeah.
this is basically just what to look for. I don't know. I've never been a Mormon. However, my life has been very much affected by this belief system, whether it's Mormon or not, or if we gotta put percentages on whatever, to each their own.
Yeah.
It's not to cast stones. Believe in whomever you wanna believe, but when those beliefs start taking lives of my family, watch yourself, okay? Because
Mhm.
their blood was spilled. That's my blood. That's Meekin's blood too,
Yeah.
okay? Can it buy us a platform? Mhm. To help extend their voice is just the way I look at it, so
Yeah, I love that perspective. I think that's important. And you have to remember, when you're involved in a family of, you've got people in your family that you love who unalived people that you love. That's a
Yeah.
hard enough thing to wrap your brain around. But then also to have it tied into your religion, which is your entire worldview. And for those of you who don't know anything about Mormonism, it's not just a place you go on Sunday. It is an all-encompassing, life-sucking, soul-sucking, it takes
Ancillary-
everything.
oh,
It's
echo
everything.
chamber.
And Mormonism has an answer for everything. So if you want to know where we came from, why we're here, where we're going, what your life purpose is, what's going to happen when you die, Mormonism has an answer for all of those things.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
to question the veracity of those teachings means to question your entire existence, your entire worldview, your entire eternal perspective, everything that's going to happen. So in order to deconstruct Mormonism, you have to literally face all of the existential fears of what is you have to face the fear of
Your entire
meaninglessness,
life.
the fear
Your
of death.
entire
Yes, it's everything. So I
Oh,
don't blame anybody who stays in the church and who turns a blind eye to things that might be problematic, because it is
comfortable.
so incredibly difficult to deconstruct your entire
Yeah.
worldview.
Yeah. It's comfortable. I've put myself in this position learning about Mormonism and the belief system of Chad and Lori. That's the common denominator, right? I'm like, they live here,
Yeah.
they grew up here, grew up separate places, but there's that big temple and that's their common interest. And so I'm just like, oh, how'd they start their own cult? I don't get it. I was just I'm still trying to understand, I mean, I'll never stop trying to understand. But it's interesting to me. My uncle was a Catholic. Okay. My grandfather, his dad, my mom was Charles Vallow's sister. Kay Vallow Woodcock is my mom. Hi, Mom, if you're here or if you see this. But so my grandfather even wrote a quote unquote doomsday book. Okay. I remember finding that out and I was like, what the hell, Mom? You got to tell me about these things. Okay. Holy crap. But I mean, it's just about revelation. It's a, free book. Anyways, you can still find it on some website. But anyway, so it's interesting to me to find and to see how my uncle went basically from one extremist frying pan into another extremist frying pan. Yeah. And I'm just like, what? It blows my mind, but he believed in faith. He believed in family. He believed in his wife.
Yeah.
It's just it all goes back down to just the people being held accountable. At the end of the day, they're in prison and are being held accountable.
Yeah.
However, there are factors that flow into this, remember the river analogy from the oh my gosh, I can't think right now.
Is it the doctrine?
Life.
Oh yeah.
For the kids, how the river.
I loved that. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a good analogy.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's so many things or cups of water, whatever you want to say, that flow into their belief system. But the common denominator is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, in my opinion. And I mean, again, I'm not looking for a new place to send 10% of my income. I'm just saying, and I mean, I went in with no, and I mean, at that time, it was just my Uncle Charles that was murdered at that time.
Yeah.
When I kind of dove in, it was a trust fall. So I don't know if I can send it either, but I was like, holy crap, I made it this far. I'm just going to continue because it's very fascinating to me too. I don't know scriptures, but I mean, I know more Mormon scriptures than I do Catholic. I went to see, I can't think today.
Catechism.
Catechism, but it's called C something. Anyways, and I never confirmed it. Church for me here is not at all what church is like for a Mormon at all. Okay. A lot of people, their jobs are connected to the church, I mean, or
Yeah.
just in and around it. They work for the university, they work for different places that, deal with the church
Well, but
or
even
church people.
if it's not like specifically affiliated with the church, if you live in Utah and you're a realtor or a dentist or
Yeah,
anybody
connected.
who relies on the community for your livelihood, if you leave the church, Mormons are not going to do business with you because you are now
No,
considered an apostate. You're an other. You are not welcome in the community anymore.
girl, I have dealt with this just being a Nevermo and being related to Lori Vallow.
Yeah.
I'm just like, hey, acknowledge me, you damn ex-Mormons, you Mormons.
Oh,
No, I'm
man.
just kidding. I'm just
Meanwhile,
saying,
early
I'm not
on,
saying
there
that
was,
in a slant, in a mean
yeah,
way. But I'm just like, God dang it, I'm here typing and I'm like just trying to figure it out. And I don't know who's a believing Mormon and who's not a believing Mormon. I'm just like, okay, they
yeah.
said Joseph Smith, so okay, what you got.
And
But
early on, there were like people who would, I would be like, for example, I was at the pool one time, meeting some people I'd never met before. And for whatever reason, the case came up and they were like, oh my gosh, can you believe this crazy lady who unalived her kids? And I was like, wow, that's weird.
sit down.
Like
Yeah,
not wanting people to know that I was
right.
involved in any way. It was wild.
I don't
And now here
I
I
don't think
am.
it's don't be ashamed because, I mean, it's the path that Lori and Alex both took on their own. I know we wanna save I do. I wanna just help other people, but you can't help people who aren't willing to even ask for it or there's no problem in Lori's mind or
Right.
eyes or whatever the hell on the scene, on that scene.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
she's nonsensical, like Uncle Charles said. She's nonsensical. Now something I did pick up on the other day, and I mean, again, this has been what, 5 years, over 5 years now. But since the body cam footage came out for Uncle Charles, and I just picked up on this and I've listened to it a bazillion times already. There's a part where he's talking to one of the police. I don't remember which one it was, but he says she says or she thinks she's married to the prophet Moroni. And he's like, I think he says top of the temple, and he says the ancient prophet. Wait, no. Hold on. Hold on. I got it backwards. I'll get it and I'll come back because it's the wording that tripped me up and I was like, "Oh my god." Oh, that she was married to Moroni in ancient times. And I was like, "Okay, well that puts a whole nother context to it." You know? Past lives, couples ruse, Tim Ballard,
Right.
allegedly M. Russell Ballard sanctioned the couple's ruse.
Right.
I heard that this is just hearsay, so don't be quoting me, okay? I'm just saying that Julie Rowe was allegedly telling this to other men that they had been married in past lives. There are
Sorry, I have a
people that came
visitor.
forward. I could hear him. She's so cute. Or she, he or she.
This is Valkyrie. She's a
Well,
girl.
come on. Oh, come on,
Um,
girl.
she just wants me to love her. She's like, "You've been over
Well,
here for so
yeah,
long.
you could ride her.
You are not allowed. No, you are not allowed,
You
ma'am.
could
You are
so
no,
ride her.
no, you are not allowed. Get down."
Oh my gosh,
Sorry,
she's
guys.
a big baby, huh? I could hear her like a horse. Yeah,
She's the
makes
little one
sense.
of the two, and their tails are like crazy. So whenever they wag their tails and they bang against the walls, that's the sound you're hearing. I'm sorry, everyone.
Okay. I had pit bulls that would beat my legs up with their tails. I'd be like, "Oh my god." And they were
Yeah,
short, but
yeah.
still. Yeah. Anyways, this is so interesting to it's unique. It's a very unique experience to have to go through. But I'm so glad and honored and relieved to be able to go through this with you. I'm like, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate
You
it.
know?
And just to let you guys know, I saw that Kresha had posted something earlier, and I was like, oh, she's
Yeah.
about to go live. Let me call her real quick before she goes live. Just had to unpack because it's so refreshing to have somebody you don't have to explain things to, you know.
Right.
We just can talk and we can be like, hey, remember that thing at that time? Okay, well, here's what else I found out.
Yeah.
You know, like I
Yeah,
don't
you
have to
don't
give a
have to
bunch
do
of
the whole backstory. You
backstory.
don't have to have a little cartoon, okay, like we watched at the beginning here.
Right.
Oh my God, the Tim Ballard OUR / Sound of Freedom / holy crap. Good explanation though, in a nutshell, in less than 3 minutes. So
I
I
don't know.
appreciate that. I,
Yeah.
have you ever tried to, well, I cannot summarize this case. Like, I need to email somebody who is waiting for me to email them, okay? And I'm just like, it's so massive because I'm explaining the or I'm trying to explain the Tim Ballard aspect of it too. And anyway, so I'm just like, it stopped me from emailing, because I'm just like, I don't even know where to start. I've never been able to do this.
Well, I think I always I try to be concise about the fact that it's mainly a case about religious extremism.
Yeah.
It's mainly the fact that Lori and Chad in their own ways were already extremists before they met each other, and that their desires just aligned.
Yeah.
They both said things to each other that the other person wanted and needed to hear. And it's about religious extremism, but it's also about unhealed emotional wounds. And it's about two people trying to get things that they never thought they would have. And when they both saw an opportunity to get their needs met, they fed off of each other. And I think that Lori believes very deeply that she is an exalted being who is supposed to bring about the
You do?
gathering of the 140,000. I really do think she believes it. Now, I think that there
Yeah.
may have been times when everything was happening, when when things were being set into motion. I think there were times, because I think there are times in the minds of every psychopath and of every charlatan and of every narcissist. I think there is that space between awake and asleep when you're just alone with yourself, and you have to be really real with yourself about who you really are and what is really happening in your life. I think
Reflection.
there are those brief moments when, even if you're deluding yourself in some way, that's the one moment where reality sinks in, right?
And
And
you're cheating yourself if you lie to yourself, I
Yeah.
think, right there, or if you feed into that delusion,
Right.
right?
And I
I don't know.
recognize that for myself too, because my drug of choice was dissociation. I told myself, like, up until the age of 35, if you asked me about my upbringing, my childhood, my past experiences, I would have said, yeah, I had a basically good childhood. My parents and I didn't get along very well, but things are better now. And, things are basically good and I'm basically happy. But in those moments, right before I would fall asleep at night, I would acknowledge to myself how deeply unhappy I was, and how I knew that there were things that were unresolved that I hadn't addressed, but I couldn't think about it because I didn't know how to change it. And
Yeah.
I felt hopeless about it.
Right?
And so you can either choose to continue to delude yourself, or you can choose to do the really hard work that it takes to look at reality, even though it's very, very painful.
Look in the mirror, right. Point that mirror. Like, don't be afraid to point that mirror right at yourself and really. I did this too. Like, I became very bitter, between divorces. I've been divorced, married, divorced twice. And I didn't like who I became after the second one. I was like, "Oh my god, you are an asshole." Like, straight up. That was real talk. And I didn't like what I saw, so to speak. And anyway, I'm not saying I changed a great deal, but I did. I do believe I did, because I began loving myself after that. No, I don't really. I'm not in touch with all the the words, and um, I didn't know what self care even. What I heard that from my friend Jen, and I was like, what? What self care? Okay, yeah. I try to think positive, or, not, like, "You're a loser," you know what I mean? Like, I try to not put myself down, but I do, I'm human. And, I mean, this just being in this realm, I'm not comfortable on camera, as you can see. Like, I'm just not happy with I don't go to CrossFit or any other fitness place. I need to, okay, because
I
this
don't
case that
either
I put
anymore,
on
by the
is
way.
down. I'm serious, like, I can't stand myself in my own body,
Mm.
but I'm starting to break away from the computer and the screen. Now, but it sucks because, whenever you put yourself into something, there's always some other aspect or aspects of your life that are going to be shortchanged. They're gonna you're sacrificing things. You're robbing from Peter to pay Paul, because you're only one person. And now that's something I'm learning. And anyway, so I'm having to make the conscious decision to be like, okay, Crush, you're gonna die. You're killing yourself slowly, or you're letting Lori and Chad do it, because that's what sucked me into this anyways. But I appreciate this world, this community, that, I mean, for real, it has really opened me up. It's given me what I consider talk therapy. Like, I feel like I need to pay you guys, straight up. And so I just appreciate this space that has been created around these horrific tragedies, real life. This is not true crime. This is real life. It's reality. A lot of people do have a hard time with reality. And it's the reality of it. you know? Um and I mean, so I know a lot of times I can come off as just not well spoken, not I kind of speak in slang sometimes. I'm just me, okay? I'm not trying to be anybody else. I think it's interesting that and neat that you allow me to share. Y'all are here to listen, and I appreciate that. I really do. And just thank y'all so much. Thank you.
You have a great community here, and that's one of the things I love about the people who have found us because of Lori and have stayed with us because of the way that we talk about it, and the ability that we're able to find connection and healing in this tragedy. And I think it's sort of unique to our family in this case. And I say our because, like, you're my sister now,
Yeah.
Kay and
No.
Larry are my
Mhm.
adopted parents now. Like,
Mhm.
we've made these connections because we care about each other. And I honestly, I credit Larry more than anything, because he was the one who started doing the initial reaching out to
Oh,
people.
girl. I got chills on
And
my face now.
yeah, and I'm so
You saying
grateful.
that.
I'm so grateful because, when I first started talking to, like, I knew who Kay and Larry were. But of
Right.
course, I had only ever heard really kind of negative things about Kay and
Right.
Larry, from
Oh
for the
gosh.
most part, right? And so um, I didn't know what to think, but I also knew not to take any of those things at face value, because I knew the
Yeah.
source that it was coming from, right? So, I was so happy to, I was happy that, so the person who was doing the documentary for Amazon, what's that one called? It's
Amazon.
Doomsday Mom. It was for Prime
Doomsday.
Video. The
Just
one
Doomsday.
Just called
Oh.
Doomsday, right?
Wait, no,
Felicia,
Mom and Larry were in a documentary way early.
yeah, Felicia.
It's on
Shoot,
ID. Yeah, Felicia, yeah.
yeah, she reached out to me and asked if I would be willing to meet Kay and Larry. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Yes,
Mhm.
like, yes, 1,000 times yes.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it. I was so grateful for the support and the kindness, because especially after not getting that from my own family, you know, and for being sort of shamed for the things that I was talking about. Anyway, I'm grateful that you wanted to dig into this a little bit, because I did want to help people understand better. And from the comments, it sounds like people are understanding Adam better. And that's my goal. Like, I want people to understand where he's coming from.
Place too. Like
Exactly.
a non-judgmental place, like
Yeah.
how that must be. And I mean, I can understand why not wanting to confront and provoke all that, you know, that when it's just comfortable for right now to just hold on to what you have because it's all you know.
Right.
And anything outside of that is very uncomfortable, and it's been uncomfortable for the last 5 years already.
Yeah.
Outside of our own his and like Adam, you know, like outside of his own decisions, you know, like these aren't his decisions yet, just like you, just like me, just like every other person, just like Adam. And every person who is on or in or out of the public eye, I mean, these ripple effects are so massive. And I mean, they decrease life expectancy. I mean, you know, people die sooner. I mean, it just is crazy. Just watching my own parents, you know, it changes everything. Murder changes everything.
Yeah.
In a split second, everything just, I mean, it shocked me so hard that it rocked my world. And I mean, it traumatized me. But, you know, I mean, just it is what it is. I think I was already traumatized before that. And this was just like, oh, here you go, and here you go, and here you go. That's okay. I'm no different than anybody else in here. Okay. We go through things, but I've always, my counselor told me, she was like, you are so resilient. I was just like, okay, whatever that means, you know, at the time.
Well,
but yeah,
it
I am.
means
We
that
are.
it means that you
We
have
have
the
to be.
ability to experience incredible hardship and not lose your love for mankind, and not
life,
lose your
right.
ability to connect with people, and not allow yourself to become jaded and hardened, because it would be so easy to just let your anger consume you, and to isolate yourself away, and to just become bitter. It's easy to do that. And I don't have any negative things to say about people who end up in those places, because I know, again, I know how hard it is. And when I look at, you know, the things that I've been through, I think I've said this before on my own channel, but I remember listening to somebody who was a victim of child SA, and she said, I will never again be hurt the way that I was hurt before. And what I said was, I will never hurt anyone the way that I was hurt. It's a subtle difference, but one builds a wall and the other builds a bridge. And I think that it's really, I don't have any judgment for people who build walls instead of bridges, but I think that's where we go wrong as humanity. You know, it's like, it feels safer to build a wall, but really we're hurting ourselves. And when you were talking about like
Sometimes I think
self-love,
maybe we build it not knowing that you're building it, not knowing the repercussions or any other way to deal with your trauma, right?
Right. And we do it thinking we're going to protect ourselves from being hurt. But what we don't realize is what Brene Brown says, is that you can't protect yourself from pain without also protecting yourself from love. You lose the ability to form a connection and to have a relationship. And it's difficult work to do, but I think that's where a lot of us lose connection with other people. And when you were talking about self-love, I was like, amen, sister. Like, that's what my whole channel is about. I always say, like, be good to each other, but most of all, be good to yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you've got nothing left for anybody else. You can't be a good
That's
mother.
a
You
hard
can't
thing to
be a good
learn.
friend. You can't be a good sister. You can't be a good daughter if you are trying to pour from an empty cup. So
Right.
care for yourself first. Put your own oxygen mask on first
Yeah.
so that you
Because
can
you're
take
no
care of
good
the
for
people
anybody else.
that you care about. Yeah.
And we all
100%.
want to help. I know we do. Okay. I know we do. That the most beautiful thing, I used to say silver lining, and it is a silver lining in this horrendous situation, is you see both the worst of humanity, but you also see the best of humanity at the same time.
Yeah.
And it really it ignites my soul really big time.
Yeah.
And it has afforded me like just confidence, support, strength, endurance, like just to keep going. There was KJ in the Ray. She's another she's a beautiful person. And I mean, she got me to see, like, she drove all the way, her and her husband drove all the way from Tennessee, okay? And then like we ended up at Mom and Larry's house that got damaged by the hurricane, but we had a crawfish boil, just impromptu, okay?
Yeah.
And I mean, and then we, like my Uncle Charles's Letterman jacket. And KJ, I brought it out and I was like, here, put this on. She was like, oh my God. I mean, she was just following the case because of the kids and connected, right? Just like a lot of you have, if you're following Lori and Chad Daybell's case. And how that transpired, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, she told me one thing that I didn't realize at that point, because I didn't set out to be like, hey, I'm going to go create me a YouTube community. That is on my list. Okay. No, I was like, she said, Kresha, you have to show up for your community. Like, I don't know what it was, but it's just like, hey, you have to continue this basically, like you have to. And I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't realize until that moment that I was like, what? I don't have it. This is Tylee and JJ and Charles and Tammy and Joe's community. They brought this together. They brought us
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Okay. But then I'm like, oh my God, I have a community. It's like, oh God, you have a baby, which congrats to Colby and Kelsey, by the way.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I'm so excited
Yeah.
about that.
Anyways, all right. Well,
So
it's
I think we covered 2 of the things that we wanted to cover.
yeah, that's more
But
than
let me
usual.
just, because I just did this on my own channel, although I haven't posted it yet because I have to edit it, because a lot of times when I do my own videos, I'm like, so this, and this, and then 10
I don't know
seconds
how
of
to
silence while
simplify
I
it.
think of the next thing to say.
I
But
don't
just,
know how to condense things, okay? I'm just like, I can't. And I have to
yeah.
learn. Okay.
Just to recap about Lori's no-show in her court hearing. So on Thursday, Lori had a Rule 11 Rule 11 hearing. Rule 11 is about her competency to stand trial. Look at this girl over here.
I hear her.
Valkyrie, get out.
Woof.
It's like, please let me outside for the 348th time today. I have squirrels to take. So Lori's original public defender in Arizona requested a Rule 11 competency hearing for Lori way back in October, right? And the judge granted it and said, yes, she needs to be evaluated. Well,
Girl, you
then,
need to go get checked.
right. Then her attorneys were conflicted out so that she had to get new attorneys, right?
Yeah.
So then so she gets new attorneys, right? Then she tells the new attorneys that she wants to represent herself, which I think we all can agree is going to be a wild, crazy garbage show, and nobody wants
Manipulation tactic, or does she really want to rep herself like
that.
what's the name, Daryl, whatever?
I think she
Oh, that
really
was
believes
crazy.
that she is smart enough to represent herself in a major trial like this. That's her hubris. I think she believes
She
that.
can rely on herself. She's always relied on herself, right?
Yep.
Ugh.
So that was October 24th. And then on October 29th, her new attorneys made a motion to withdraw the Rule 11. They're like, we got one report from one psychiatrist. We're good. We think she's competent. I had a long conversation with her. I think she's fine. So then they go into the status conference on November 6th, which is the one I missed because that's the day I
Me
injured
too.
my foot, which, by the way, I'm doing much
And I
better, you
talked to you
guys.
that
I'm
day. I
off.
talked to you that day.
Yeah, I'm off crutches and I'm driving now. So we're on the mend. Anyway, so she had a status conference with Judge Boreski, which I love this guy. He's
I do
amazing.
too.
He is no nonsense. He does not take crap from anybody.
He's just cool
So,
too.
yeah.
Smooth.
So at that status conference, he said, no, I'm not going to just dismiss the Rule 11 because I know she was not competent before, and I want to make sure I understand everything. So he said, we're going to continue with the Rule 11. And he also vacated the February trial. So as of right now, there is no official trial date for Lori.
Right.
Her February trial is gone because we have to go through the whole Rule 11 process to make sure she's competent first. So on Thursday, she was supposed to appear for the Rule 11 hearing to determine her competency, and she decided not to show up. And also, she's not cooperating with the mental health evaluators. She refuses to meet with them. So the prosecution is like, well, dude, can you please tell your client that she would get through the Rule 11 if she would cooperate faster? And they're like, well, we'll try.
Good luck.
So what's coming up is that there's another status conference on the 20th, which I think is just going to be more of the same because there's not going to be anything new at that point.
Mhm.
The second mental health evaluators report is due on December 2nd.
Yeah.
And then there will be another Rule 11 hearing on December 5th. So what
time do you have? Because Mom sent me Central Standard Time, 9:30 in the morning.
I think that's correct.
Okay. I'm like, why am I Central?
So the status conference on the 20th is at 8:30. Maybe it is.
No,
Maybe
on
the
the
Rule
5th.
11 is at 8:30 on the 5th, on December 5th. They said 8:30, but
Okay.
I know Arizona doesn't practice daylight savings
Right.
time, so it might actually be 9:30 Central. I don't know.
We're gonna get on top of this. Like, well, I told Megan earlier, I was like, look, Justin Lum, he runs a regular beat. Like, he has to report on the news for the entire,
Right.
city or whatever. And so it's a lot different than how, we're used to it. We're used to Nate Eden. We're used to that being the trial of focus, like
Right.
that's anyway.
And
so
it's not. There's other
but we're
stuff
gonna
going
know.
on. So yeah. So I had to look at probably 3 different news articles and watch 4 different YouTube videos to get this timeline right, you guys. So
Yeah.
I'm breaking it down
did
for you.
good. You did wonderful.
So what I'm hoping is that at that December 5th hearing, Lori
Mhm.
will have decided to cooperate and get the second mental health evaluation, that they will get the report in time for the attorneys to review it so that on
Mhm.
December 5th, they'll be able to have that status conference or that Rule 11 hearing and say either she is competent or she's not competent. If she's not competent, of course, she'll go into treatment where they're going to try to, what's the word? Rehabilitate. It's not really the right word.
Get her competent and
Have her competency restored, right?
Mhm.
If she is competent, they'll go forward,
Mhm.
and then at that point,
Mhm.
I guess the judge will rule on whether or not she can represent herself.
If she doesn't show up, what do you think? I mean, neither of us are attorneys, by the way, but
Right. I don't even play one on TV.
Damn it, not yet.
If she doesn't cooperate with the mental health evaluation, I know that the judge did not want to rule with just one
Mhm.
evaluator and with her not
Right.
even in the courtroom. He can't ask her any questions or
No
any of that kind of
kidding.
stuff.
Because they could just say
So
whatever. I mean, or she could say that they said whatever, or room for appeal, right?
yeah.
I guess.
So anyway, who knows what's going to happen. I hope that it just goes forward because I think Charles deserves justice. Brandon deserves justice. I'm tired with her monkeying around with this BS. I think she is manipulating things and whatever. So I just want it to go forward and be done with it,
I know. It's been a hot minute. Yeah.
James Smith,
So,
I think the short answer to your question is no, I hope. I don't know. I've never contemplated that before.
it's allegedly whatever it is. Anyways. No, I don't know. That's from another channel. I'm talking. smack. It's a Diddy thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. And that's another thing. Like my partner was like, "Oh, you need to comment on the Diddy stuff. It's right
You
up your alley."
do.
And I was like,
I told you that too.
"Girl, I don't have the brain space right now
You don't have to.
to
You
be
can just
doing."
jump at it as you will,
Yeah.
as you can.
My
Okay.
channel and Lori stuff and ex-Mormon stuff and Diddy and Tim Ballard, and I just can't. So I got to do as much as I can do. Although I am really
Yeah.
happy to be doing this full time now. So I
Yeah.
expect there to be a lot more stuff
Right?
coming.
It's
Yeah.
scary too, though, because I'm just like, I don't do so hot in this. Because I mix it all together like a gumbo, like from Southwest
Well,
damn Louisiana, yo.
it is kind of all connected,
Yeah,
and
it
it's
is.
scary how it's all connected, and I don't like it. I don't.
It's
I
very
get.
sad.
That's the other thing, is that I get overwhelmed really quickly when I
Oh,
start to
yeah.
think about all of the connections and the huge problems that I can't do anything about, and
Well,
I don't know. I care too
you
much.
can just not with that attitude, okay? And it's strength in numbers, okay?
Right.
Your voice is just as relevant and important for your community, people that go to you and maybe don't go anywhere else or won't know about it from any other
Right.
perspective. So, I know I mix a whole lot of things together, and I'm just like this. At first, it was like, how do I make this entertaining? Because I mean, woo, come here for red rum and doom and gloom, and this isn't like my niche. I wasn't like, hey, yeah, let's do this, and
Yeah.
all right, I'm
I'm
doing
glad
something
you're
I get
doing
to
it.
live. But I am doing something that I'm passionate about, and that, I mean, yeah, that affects my life to this very day. It affects my
Yeah.
brother's life. My brother's also in prison. So there's like two different sides of the spectrum here, as far as like how Lori was, telling and dehumanizing her children. And JJ he was my nephew, my only nephew. I don't have any others. And then he was adopted. So it was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
It's like I don't know, I feel for my brother in the sense that he lost his baby twice, because he wanted to be a dad,
Right.
just wasn't capable at that time. And then to
Yeah.
hear the things that Lori said about JJ, about him being a drug baby,
Yeah.
and I mean, we're like, "That's your baby, right?"
Yeah.
Right, Lori? Like where disconnect, total
Yeah.
dehumanization to push away, to distance herself from what was about to transpire,
Yeah.
you know?
So
But
I see so many
oh,
good questions in chat, and I don't think we have time to answer all of them. Like we could go going for 3 hours now, but
no, I'm
please,
hungry.
please, if you're in chat and you didn't get your question answered, please comment. I don't know about you, Kresha, but I try really hard to answer comments, especially when
She's
they're
better at it, I'll tell you
questions.
that.
Or
I'm
you
like,
can email me, Megan@third-verse.com, or ask Megan@gmail.com with two E's. I'm always happy to answer questions. There was one in particular, how come there was so much arguing back and forth between the two judges? One judge, Judge Boreski, is the one who is the main judge who's assigned to her case. The other administrative judge was the one who is in charge of the Rule 11 hearings. So that's the reason why the decisions went back and forth. But I think they were both on the same page that neither one of them wanted to vacate the Rule 11. They both wanted to, I don't know. There was another question I wanted to get to, but I don't know
well,
where
you
it
just
is
let
now.
me know which
Sorry.
one, and I will click
I
it, girl.
can't I
I'm so
can't
Catholic.
star them. I can't star them
You can't?
when you're the host. So
I need to just add you to my thing. You can just come on in.
right, I'll just come
I'm
in whenever
serious.
I want.
I've got a couple seats, so yeah, and I agree. It's brain problems, it's soul problems, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
definitely,
Um,
there's a lot of hurt,
yeah,
and
Aaron
a lot of people just
saying,
lash out.
I believe she resented her two younger children. I'm about to do another episode on my channel about the concept of the devouring mother, which
Oh my
basically says
god.
what you're saying. Like she resented her two younger children because they got more attention than she did, and it's a whole psychological concept that I'm ready to unpack. So
it was like an accessory to me. Like, to me, like how that little cartoon in the beginning about how these white women want to go adopt the brown babies, because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like Paris Hilton,
The
or
savior
whatever.
complex.
I'm just saying, yes, it's like, hey, I'm going to go get me I'm going to go adopt a baby. And because a lot of people think that whenever they have a baby and or maybe adopt a baby, that it will create whatever they are lacking inside is what I
Mhm.
think. Like, it's something Lori does not love herself is where I'm at.
Right. 100%.
Lori is trying to feel that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and you can trace that one issue, self-love, you can trace that back to almost every problem and almost every challenge that you're facing in your life. If you would ask yourself this one question, what is the most loving thing that I can do for myself? And if you ask that question, you answer it honestly, you follow your instincts, you already know what you need to heal, you already know what's best for you. It's just that sometimes it's really hard to do. And sometimes it means hurting someone's feelings. And sometimes it means putting yourself in front of someone else. And that's especially hard to do when you're a mother or when you're a partner or whatever the case is. But you, again, I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it again. You can't be the best partner, the best mother, the best friend, the best sister, the best daughter, the best son, the best uncle, whatever. You cannot be the best version of yourself unless you put yourself first and take care of your own needs first.
Megan, yes, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am, yes, ma'am. I mean, I was like, oh my God, yes, I need to
Be
hear this.
kinder to yourself. Stop talking negatively about yourself. The words that you use about yourself matter. Look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, I'm proud of you. I love you. You're doing the best you can, and I'm here for you. And give yourself a high five and go on and have an amazing day.
High five. Yes. Hey, you was kind, you was smart, you was important. I love that little saying,
Yep.
and it's true. But
Yep.
anyways, if you really want to be a better person, you click subscribe, like, share out the videos, and you will instantly become my favorite person. Megan's too. No, I'm kidding. But we do. I'm not going to speak for her, but the support helps. Okay, that's all I'm
Yes.
saying.
I love
Appreciate
you. I'm
it.
glad to be here with you.
Me too. Thank you so much for sharing today with me. All
Of
right.
course.
I'll see you guys next time. Okay. So I don't know when that'll be. Megan, you're tomorrow, or yeah, you're tomorrow, Sunday.
Yes, I will put up a video tomorrow. I usually do a Sunday live. I'm supposed to have an interview tomorrow. I have a family thing brewing that may interrupt it, so I'm gonna just do my best to stay consistent. That's all I can say.
About
You
what time? Because if I do
nor
schedule,
well,
I'd like to do before and or after. That way I can,
yeah, so
you
I
know.
started to realize Sunday
Mm.
night is super crowded in the circles that we run in, and so
Yeah.
I started doing it a little earlier in the day, like around 4 or 5, which I had like a third of the people that I normally do,
No,
and I
do
just
what you
figured
normally
people
do.
will catch it when they catch it, you know? It's better for me to do it around 4 or 5 and then do dinner with my family and not have to
Yeah.
worry about doing a live after, you know?
See, I don't know what that scheduling thing is, so I never premiere anything. I'm just like, yeah, okay, let's do this. I think I did premiere it on accident one time, and I was like, oh crap, okay. Anyway, so yeah, there's that. But
Yeah,
we're here just learning, right? All
yep.
right, so I'll see you guys next time. Hey, thank you all so much for being here and supporting and us and listening. And Megan for sharing your wisdom. It's so good. Bye, guys. Justice for Tylee, Charles, Tammy, JJ, and Joe. Love always wins. And you guys are proof of that. Bye.
Love you.